understand me.
The TCL 10 Pro, brand new phone. Is it the iPhone SE's Android brother? You know, a few months ago I was at CES with a bunch of other folks and we all got a chance to check out some new TCL phones. And I know you're saying right now, TCL phones, you have to say, like, where did they come from? Well, yeah, but TCL has been making phones for quite a while, actually, for companies like Alcatel, BlackBerry, and others. But this year, they decided to put their own brand name on some devices. The first is the TCL 10L, which I never would have pegged as a $250 phone. Another is the TCL 10 Pro. It's $450, and it sort of defies that price point somehow. In this video, I'm going to talk you through some of the details and a lot of my thoughts about TCL's new phones, the features, and how they stack up against the competition, as well as what I think they could mean to the overall smartphone market.
I'm your huckleberry.
Hey there, friends on YouTube. My name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is Painfully Honest Take! Text so honest it hurts! If this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by. If you've been here before, thanks so much for coming back again. I hope you'll all do it repeatedly. There has been a lot of talk about how Apple, with the iPhone SE, has finally embraced compromise as a necessary part of its product line, and TCL has been in that spot for a while. Most of us in North America, we know TCL as the company that makes really cheap, but also really good televisions. The thing about TCL TVs is that even at the lower end of their TV range, it's hard to say that they look or act like budget TVs because they really don't. They are very feature-packed for a very low price. So, how does TCL fare in the phone market? First, let's just go through some specs so we know what we're talking about. I'm going to concentrate mainly on the TCL 10 Pro, which costs $449, but a lot of this also applies to the 10L, this one, to a lesser degree. The TLDR on the 10L is if you have $250 to spend on a phone and no more, then you should buy this phone. First, I want to say that the 10 Pro has the fit and finish of a phone twice its price. The design is sort of that rounded, pebbly kind of thing that Samsung has made popular over the past several years, and I've never been a big fan of the rounded edges, but in my time with this phone so far, I haven't had the problems that I've had with Samsung phones on false touches and that kind of thing. So that's good. The phone has 6 gigabytes of RAM, which I think is a pretty basic standard amount for an Android smartphone. Comes with 128 gigabytes of storage standard, plus micro SD card expandability. Those two things are features that Google has not been able to pull off at all, ever, for twice the price. Everybody always says, oh, it feels good in the hand, right? And it's kind of become a meme, it's funny, it's blah, blah, blah. But at the risk of sounding cliche, I'm going to say it. The phone feels good in the hand. Really, really good in the hand. The back glass has this iridescent sort of matte finish to it that's really kind of cool looking. It's a lot like the matte finish on the iPhone 11 Pro models, but it's a little bit more silky. I really like it. And while the 6.4-inch screen here is 1080p, it's also an AMOLED screen, and I have never seen a screen that pops this much at this price point. TCL does screens, and I guess it's clear they spent some time dialing this one in. It's right on the heels of Samsung. The colors may be a little bit more saturated, and that makes it pop more, but gosh, this thing looks really good, and if you watch like high definition 4K HD blah 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 video on here, you'll see what I mean. The phone's got 4 camera lenses on the back, including a 64 megapixel lens, and the front-facing camera doesn't do too bad either. I took some selfies. I'm going to show you guys a few pictures here as we talk. In some cases, I do just point and shoot. I open the camera, point and shoot. I don't focus. I don't do any of those things because I figure that's how most people use their phones. This phone really performed very well for a lower priced phone. It's about as good as you could hope a camera could get at the sub $500 price range. It holds its own against the bigger boys quite a bit. And TCL doesn't stop there in a move that boggles the mind. They have not only made a sub $500 phone that punches above its weight class, but they have been able to do something that other phone manufacturers have not been able to do for a while. It took courage, but the TCL 10 Pro and 10L both have headphone jacks. The 10 Pro also has an IR blaster and a notification light feature that you can turn on. So I get IR Blaster and Notification Light all the time in comments on my videos. And now, here's your phone. This is it. Notification Light, IR Blaster, right here, TCL 10 Pro. All of this is cool, but the most impressive feature of the 10L and the 10 Pro is the battery life. I'm not joking. Not only did I get like 2 days worth of battery use out of both these phones, but the standby time, where the phones, you know, they're just sitting around on a table or they're on your nightstand overnight. Typically, an Android phone would lose anywhere from like 6 to 10% of the battery just sitting on a nightstand overnight. But both of these phones were more like iPhones in this respect. They lost only like 2, maybe 3 percentage points of battery while they sat doing nothing. Android, I've never been able to get an Android phone to do that. I don't know how TCL has achieved this, and no other manufacturer has been able to that I've encountered. Yes, the less powerful chipset in here does help a little bit, but the batteries are not bigger than other Android phones. I mean, there's no wireless charging here, but in the box, it comes with an 18-watt fast charger. It also gives you a TPU soft shell case that is decent enough, and it doesn't add a lot of bulk. That's something that I like about a case. I'm not a fan of the logo that's stamped across the back of the case, TCL. I'm not a fan of this logo, but, you know, it's free, whatever. Of course, everything is not perfect with the TCL 10 Pro, and this is where you start to get an idea of how they got to the $450 price point. And it's up to you, really, if any of this matters enough to you to pay hundreds of dollars for that flagship Samsung or whatever. The 10 Pro has the Qualcomm 675 chip inside, which is not as powerful a chip as you would find in a flagship phone from LG, Samsung, Google, blah-de-blah. Those phones will carry the top, like, Qualcomm chip, I think it's the 865 this year, 875? I don't know, I can't remember these things. I think it's the 875. In day-to-day use, though, the 675 that's in here was adequate. It never felt like it couldn't perform basic tasks. It was snappy and it went from one place to the next without a lot of problems. There were a few times I experienced a little bit of judder, a little bit of stutter, a little bit of just not really lag, but just choppiness. This is not the final production software, so I'm not going to ding them that hard on that right now. Once the software is finalized, then we can talk about it. But overall, this thing, games, etc., I think it handles most everything really pretty well. There are no stereo speakers here. There's just this one down here, which in 2020 is kind of a bummer. I mean, this sounds decent enough, it's okay, but going back to a mono speaker where everything's coming out of this side after several years of stereo is kind of jarring. The 10L has a fingerprint reader on it, which I like on the back there. It's worked really well. The 10 Pro has this under the screen fingerprint reader, which is a little slow. I'm not a big fan of under the screen fingerprint readers, but it's there. And sometimes it works. Say what you will about under-the-screen fingerprint readers. They're not my favorite. This one is not as fast as, say, a OnePlus or anything, but it's adequate. It's adequate. TCL has also included some really cool features in how they implemented their version of Android. I mean, I love this smart key thing here. It's like the Bixby button, but useful. It's on the left, and it can be programmed to do 2 or 3 things. 3 things, actually. One press, you can, say, turn on the light. 2 presses, it'll open the camera. Long press takes a screenshot. So that's how I have it set up. There are other options that just seem to me like the way that it would work best for me. This thing's got Android 10 out the box, as it were, so you get all the benefits of Android 10, like dark mode built in and all that. TCL has said that they're going to provide at least one full operating system update to Android 11 for these phones, so it will have a little bit of future proofing, and there's going to be security updates along the way as well. So if you buy this phone, you're going to be okay for just a little bit. The phones will be available starting May 19th on Amazon, and there's still another model yet to come later this year, the 5G. Once they're released on Amazon, I will have a link down in the description so you can go and check it out and get yours. The long and short of it is this. TCL has proven with these phones that if you make the right compromises when building a smartphone in 2020, you can not only compete with the bigger brands, but in some cases, in some cases, you can actually surpass them. Yes, Samsung, Motorola, LG, they have phones in this price range, but I don't see the TCL 10 Pro particularly as competing with similarly priced phones. I see it more like the iPhone SE or even OnePlus from back in the good old days before their prices went crazy. You know, you get a ton of smartphone here for half of the price. What did it used to be? 90% of the phone for 50% of the price? Not quite there, but really, really close. If you were a OnePlus fan back in the day, then the TCL 10 Pro is really worth looking at if you still want that value bang for the buck kind of phone. 2020 continues to be the year of the half-price phone. While Samsung and others have taken their prices to newer heights and all kinds of things have gone on that are making that even more difficult, TCL and even Apple have slid under the $500 line and made really compelling phones. None of them are perfect. I mean, this is not a perfect phone. I'm not saying that, but each of them is worth considering before you spend $1,000 or more. The TCL 10L and 10 Pro are both worthy phones that could really, honestly, if these phones go over well, they could really shake up the market. It's like I wouldn't know that they were priced where they are if you hadn't told me kind of phones. And in a market that's probably going to be less friendly to $1,000 phones over the next who knows how long, something like the TCL 10 Pro is a really good option for a lot of people. It's not for the spec hounds. It's not for us pixel peepers. It's not for people who you know, get off on smartphone stuff, but it is for just about everybody else at a really, really good price. I find myself very impressed. I thank you to TCL to sending it out to me to check it out. And thank you for being here. Once again, my name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This has been the Painfully Honest Tech. The Painfully Honest Tech. Until the next time, I am out!
I'm your huckleberry.